Hi, welcome to Stories and Spoilers, the podcast. My name is Alyssa, and I am so excited to introduce an amazing guest. This is Evelyn Shine. She wrote an amazing, cozy, sapphic romance, which is The Librarian's Gargoyle. I devoured this book recently. It is so, so good. For listeners who are listening and aren't looking at the visuals, maybe, the cover is this beautiful woman in the arms of a gargoyle overlooking this beautiful night sky with the moon and stars, and it's amazing. You can also read it on Kindle Unlimited, and there's physical copies as well, and the book will be linked in the show notes. But without further ado, this is Miss Shine. Tell them more about you.
Hi, Alyssa. It's great to meet you. This is my debut sapphic book. I did write several books before this, but this was the first one that I was personally brave enough to write a women-loving woman book. I wanted this to be like an introduction to monster romance kind of thing for people who hadn't dared to step into monster romance before. And I wanted it to be that warm, cozy hug. And just have a lot of good feels to it. And of course, a librarian because I do love me a librarian.
Me
So
too.
that.
Yes, I am also going to be asking you some questions throughout this episode. For listeners out there, this is a non-spoiler episode, so I will not be diving into all the details of this amazing book, but we will discuss tropes as well as a little description about what you can expect from reading this book. All I'm going to say is that I'm going to say it right now. This might be one of my favorite monster romances of all time. I said it. Okay, I said it. I love monster romance. I've had a lot of friends on the podcast who also love monster romance, but this monster romance is more about the beauty of like a slow burn, the beauty of being able to transform from one creature to something else to be with the person you love, and then also acceptance. It's set in Paris. It is enchanting. There is a library with maybe magical rooms, and there's obstacles the characters must face in order to be together. And it's absolutely magical. And this mistaken identity. For folks who love that, where it's like, I want you, but I also think I'm falling in love with this person. Turns out you may not have to choose, girl. Also, it's amazing because I feel like in this book you wrote such an atmospheric world between magic and realism, and I just want to know more about like what drew you to Paris, what drew you to this library and this like chance meeting.
So all of my books, a lot of my books are set in Paris because it always had that like magical feel to me. I love the fact that there is a crypt under Paris. That's super cool. Paris turn of the century had I have another book that I've been working on for a while that there were jazz clubs that were cropping up all over. I thought that was cool. Women could own businesses during that time. Black women owned nightclubs in Paris at that time, which was completely unheard of in the US in the 1900s. It's just it's such an amazing city. I've never gotten to visit it, so all of my research, thank goodness for Google, I guess, all of my research is done online, right down to the library that's mentioned in the book. I read like accounts of the library, watched videos of people walking through it and describing it and describing what they heard, describing what they smelled. And I would actually check different people to see are they saying the same thing? And if they are, I would add that little description into the book just to make it more real. But I just not only is it the city of light and the city of love, but it just it's so easy to insert a magical world into a city that already has that magical feel to it.
I
So
couldn't
that's,
agree more. I
yeah.
did want to read the description of the book from Goodreads. This is The Librarian's Gargoyle, a cozy sapphic monster romantasy. And we also discussed before this episode started how to say the main characters' names right, because I feel like more often than not, like if anyone's ever read like big fantasy romances, like Rhysand, Rice, Reese's Pieces, I say people's names wrong all the time. Even things like Aaron, it's Aaron. My dad's name's Aaron, but like I sometimes I feel like I say people's names wrong, and then I have to like count back, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm just gonna name them Brad because that's gonna have to work for now. But with your characters, I really wanted to kind of just say how beautiful their names were. So before I read the description, it's Boadicea. or
It's Boudica. Yep,
Boudica.
Boudica.
And I'm
Yep.
sitting here, I'm like, Boudica. She's she's based
That's
off a real
fine.
historical person, a badass
It
warrior
is.
queen. And then it can be pronounced both ways. I know we mentioned it could be pronounced as Viola
Right.
or
Or Vila. And I do
Vila.
go with Vila because
I
that
like
is,
Vila too.
I just liked that pronunciation better, but it can be pronounced either way.
I like Violet because it feels like in my mind I imagined her very like Emma Watson esque, like very like whimsical and bright and bubbly and beautiful.
Yes.
So it's just the energy. But okay, so I'm gonna read the description. Magic is real, and I'm like always want to say Viola. I'm like, so and Viola is going to prove it. Viola is a Parisian librarian by day and a parkourist by night. The last thing she wants is an arranged marriage, ick, with a man, double ick. If Viola can fund the library and keep it open, she might keep her job and freedom. Might be the key word. To make matters worse, strange magic shades keep attacking her, threatening her physical safety. Viola knows magic is real and wants to be part of the world, but she can't find a way out of her mundane life. She can only vent her troubles to her confident Lady Gargoyle, though the statue has never spoken back. Boudica is a creature without a soul, a fact as steady as the stone she's made of. Yet when the magic who created Boudica gives her a task that requires her to appear human, she's feeling new, soft things for the librarian who likes to climb Paris in her slippers. Viola could never love Boudica in her true form, but the gargoyle finds herself putting her heart on the line to keep the library open and help Viola discover the magic that will pull her into a new world of freedom. The Librarian's Gargoyle is a cozy sapphic monster romantasy set in the turn of the century Paris. It is 256 pages. I read this book so fast, listeners. Like, oh, I read this so fast. My Kindle couldn't keep up with me. And I cannot wait to get a physical copy because it's so beautiful. But I want to hop into some icebreakers before I dive into the nitty-gritty and become a real fangirl. So, one of my icebreaker questions for you is, what is your favorite monster romances with LGBTQIA representation?
Okay, so monster romances can mean so many things,
Yeah.
from cozy to horror. So one of the recent ones that I read actually with my partner was Feast While You Can by Clements and Data. This was like a great horror romance read. I don't usually read horror, but it was more of that psychological kind of thing. And I don't want to give any spoilers to the book, but it's definitely a good psychological read. Another one, How to Get Your Girlfriend When You're a Terrifying Monster. This was actually my first sapphic monster read, and I thought it was super cute, a lot of fun. It's by Mary Cardno and or Marie Cardno, and it was very cozy. It had that cozy feel to it. I'd like to see more sapphic fantasy books in the world. That's why I wrote this one, and I definitely think that we need more sapphic um, monster romance because it's hard to find. It really is.
I feel like when I think of a sapphic romance and outside of yours being so wonderful, last year what really pulled me in was She Came from the Swamp, which was also really wonderful and dealt with magic, but from a contemporary standpoint in a way. It also dealt with this woman who had to her grandmother lived in a swamp area and like in like New Orleans vibes, and her grandmother unfortunately passed away, and she used to offer this creature in the swamp like baked goods and food. And the main character, her power is that, and she's pretty settled in this, is that she can go to sleep and kind of like summon creatures and like see things from a different perspective in this misty world. She ends up
Mhm.
seeing a beautiful, monstrous woman. And she wakes up and she's like, I guess my magic stuff worked. She's not real though. And she sees like watery prints like walking through her like her building. She's like, what? And then she's like throwing like a biscuit or something into the water, like as an offering, very half-ass. And a real woman comes out of the water and she's beautiful and sexy and mysterious and somewhat swampy and green. And she's like, oh my God. And the main character is like a bodybuilder and like just very, oh, it was so fun. Like it's hard to describe it without without getting like, I know how this sounds, but it's amazing. And this book was wonderful. I do Feast While You Can. This I've seen this book floating around and I've wanted to read it. So hearing you mention it, I'm like,
It
maybe.
is. It's a really good psychological one. I really enjoyed it, so
Huh,
I'd recommend it.
okay. Thank you for the recommendation. All right, my next question for you is, what's your favorite book tropes and why?
So I really like Friends to Lovers. That's just been a favorite for me, and I've been fortunate enough to manifest that in my real life. So
Aw.
my friend and critique partner became my lover, so that worked out well for me. I love a good sunshine and grumpy just for the laughs because the whole, you know, cheerful thing and the cool thing about sunshine grumpy when you do that is I really like it when the sunshine person is secretly like hiding up the big bad depression deep on the inside, and that's why they're sunshiny, and the grumpy person is actually like kind of the type that they're going to be the big protector for the sunshine person and bring that darkness that's in them that they're holding down like out into the light so that it can kind of dissipate in the light. But I like
Mm,
the banter back and forth between the grumpy and sunshine. Enemies to lovers, I would rank third. But it can't be toxic, which is really hard to find in books. Um, but I really like it's again the witty banter back and forth when you get a good enemies to lovers books and the tension between them. I don't usually like dark romance. I lean more towards the cozy and the rom-com. I like to escape into books, and my personal stories tend towards external conflicts that affect the relationship rather than conflicts between the actual characters. Um,
mm,
so the boom for cozy fantasy that was created by Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree and Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne were really fabulous for my writing style. Like that was a huge boon to me that they opened up the cozy, the desire to have cozy fantasy in the world. I think those that was the big one. I'm happy that those that I guess it's not really a trope so much as a genre that's kind of bloomed in the last couple years. I think people
mm.
need cozy stories, like something to lean on sometimes.
I did want to bring up, I actually own You Can't Spell Treason Without T. I do own that, and I wanted to read it forever. And my partner is currently reading, I think it's Bookshops and Bone Dust. I think they are currently reading that.
That's the second
So
one
I'm
in a
like,
series. Yeah.
it like lures you in and makes you want to read like D. It makes you want to play D&D. I've wanted to play forever. I've always wanted to learn. So I feel like these cozy stories as well kind of pull you into a world of like dragons and monsters and like these things that can be conquered versus in the real world, the monsters feel bigger. And your book kind of was very much grounded in this reality for me of like love can conquer all. But also you do have to stand up for yourself and you do have to fight for yourself, and your partner can back you up, but you also have a voice and like you can conquer things. And I just love that so much. So without giving any spoilers, I just feel like if you've ever wanted to read a romantasy that has sapphic representation and just feels like a warm hug, but also like has adult elements and magic that's rooted in this sense of like I guess self-fulfillment and forgiveness and healing and like wanting to be powerful but not knowing where to start. And but it has a hopeful note. This book is definitely for you. And once again, I can't express enough how much I love your writing. It's so beautiful. So yeah. Another icebreaker question, last one. What is one of your favorite romance movies and has it inspired any of your books?
This is really hard because to pick out a lesbian romance for me because one of the characters usually dies, which just um I also prefer sci-fi or fantasy over everything else, and it's been a really long time since Xena was around. So there's that. She comes
Love
back once
her.
in a while in reruns, but um Arcane would be the closest recent show that I was inspired by, and I was definitely inspired by the action sequences. I even bought my girlfriend a leather Vi jacket for our one day cosplay of Vi and Caitlin. She wears it out all the time when we go out to do open mic night or karaoke, and it is
Wow.
fire when she does. She looks utterly hot in it. Um, but that would be I would say Arcane definitely influenced some of my scenes in some of my books as far as like fight scenes and things like that. Um, and it's got to be my favorite sapphic storyline right now. Between I was kind of sad that we weren't going to see any more of
Caitlin Vi.
Caitlin and Vi. Yeah. So it's
I
fine.
I haven't finished season two yet. My partner and I are, I think, a little bit in mourning. Like we don't want it to be over. But eventually we are going to have to watch it. But there is a, it's not sapphic, but it's queer. And I really, really want to watch it, but I'm scared. And that's Interview with the Vampire, the television show adaptation. Um,
Okay,
I
yeah.
I so I know there's a sapphic relationship in the story. In season two, I think. It's minor, but it's there. We do not live at the end of that one. I've gotten spoilers for that one. But
Uh,
man, oh man, what I wouldn't give. I think I'm just there because I love Louis so much and I love Armand so much. But if I could
mhm.
get a sapphic version of that, if I if I could get a sapphic version of Interview with the Vampire, I would eat that up. I would eat it up, you know?
I
Yeah,
would say
give me
check
the
out
choice.
SD Simper's vampire series. If you're looking
Ooh,
for like sapphic vampire kind of steaminess there, I would say check that out.
SD
I'm
Simper.
trying
Okay,
to
I am
remember.
taking it down. I'm writing that down. Thank you. And listeners,
Yep.
there you go. So I know there's other books as
Also,
well
Steamy
that are coming out.
Vampires that I absolutely loved, and I love her writing, so I'll fangirl about her till the end of time. But
Ooh.
Anna Burke did In the Roses of Pierre,
And
and that one has probably like the most sensual writing. Like, not just, you can't just call it steamy because it's elevated beyond that. It is sensual writing.
ooh.
And there's vampires in that one, and it's over time, and it's done from an academic point of view. It's like that dark academia thing that's going on, and it's very good. It's also got mature, fairly mature main characters in it, as far as like they're already like several years into their careers and stuff like that. And it was nice for me to read stories with main characters that weren't 18 years old. So there was that,
Yeah,
like fantasy
won't
sapphic
lie.
that wasn't that you weren't reading someone that was like super, super young, like just starting out their adult life. These people have like been in their adult life and they're in the grind and they're trying to make it work. Um,
Ooh.
so yeah, I would say that that writing is, I definitely recommend that book too if you're looking for that
Thank
sort of thing.
you.
And I don't know if you want to consider vampires, like that's one of those definitions with monster romance is like, are vampires considered monsters? Like they could be, but they're also humanoid forms. So it's kind of like, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I
people want
also
their
question, are
monsters to be
wolves
like tentacles.
monsters?
Right? Like it kind of that sort of falls more into paranormal for some people,
Mm-hmm.
and other people are like, oh yeah, it absolutely is, but only if they don't have a human form. And it's just kind of like some people want their monsters to be very monstery. They want them to be, like tentacles and very non-human, and some people want their monsters to be a little more like it's a wolf that doesn't take a human form, or vampires, though, depends on how they act. They act human or do they act like they're monsters? And it kind of one of those things that goes back and forth, that I've heard people argue it back and forth, like what makes a monster? And I do not have an answer for you for that.
I love that question. I know what ST Gibson came out with Dowry of Blood as well as another sapphic romance, An Education in Malice, which I read last year.
Mhm.
Um sh I feel like her writing is very poetic and it gives me the same vibes as like Bram Stoker's Dracula, where it just feels like bigger than life. And it definitely does give dark academia vibes. But for me, I've always been seeking monster romances that either give me a lot of humor and like bubbly brightness, with also having a little bit of smut. But sometimes I just want a monster romance that's rooted in this like, how can this love be real? Like, how are we gonna make this work? And when the answer is as simple as like come away with me, like very like Phantom of the Opera-esque, where it's like the music of the night, you just have to come into the darkness.
Mhm.
I love when the female main character's like okay, and she just goes she just goes
Yeah.
with them, no questions asked, like all right, like we're gonna make it work. Sometimes you just need to give up all reason and just go with them. As my friend Calissa says, whenever we discuss smut and like darkness and romance, we always just say like, come to the water, it's warm. Like let's just dive in. Your book was like that. It wasn't a dark romance, but it definitely gave me the same overwhelming sense of like, I want this to work.
Hmm.
And I just wanted them to be happy and be together. And you're an amazing author that I was like sucked in from the very first page. And listeners, when you read this book, you're going to be in the same boat. Yeah, you're going to be in the same boat. So, my next question for you is, what inspired your characters? So yeah, what inspired your two main characters of this book?
So I loved the animated series, The Gargoyles, but there was not any gay in it, or not enough gay in it. Maybe I was too young if I missed any gay references, but that was what inspired this book. I was like, what if we had the Gargoyles, but they're gay? And Viola was inspired by Evie the Librarian in The Mummy, because let's face it, a lot of
Yes.
women had their gay awakening over Rochelle Weisz. Um, she's
Yeah.
super hot in that movie, and yeah, yeah. Looking back, I
Yeah.
realized there were definitely signs that I was gay, and I should have seen it sooner. For Boudica, I wanted just this like sexy, buff, butch cinnamon roll that would make readers swoon. So I made a gilf. That's what we're gonna call it. Gargle, I'd like to fuck. That's there we go. Um, and that's what I wanted for that character. I like when I was designing the character, I was like, what would I want if I wanted a gargoyle like that? And that's what I designed.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah,
Yes.
that was it.
The way you describe her hair, like she's very long hair, her beautiful obsidian skin, her eyes when she's in human form, that like grayish hue. I could
Mhm.
literally imagine like the colors in like granite and how they
Yeah.
glow in the light. The way you described everything, I was like, yes, it's a monster romance, and yes, it is a romantasy, but when it is rooted in like this is going to be the real world, how are we going to maneuver this? The
Hmm.
magic. I
Yeah.
could visualize everything in my mind, and anyone who loves like muscle mommies, like anyone who's like, I want a woman who's physically strong and emotionally soft. I'm sitting here and I'm
Yep.
like, you're gonna get her. You're gonna get her. Go get her. Go,
Yeah.
lesbians, go. It was definitely giving that. And even though Boudica is this like strong person. I felt like she was more vulnerable in this book. Very
Yeah.
vulnerable, and I loved it. Like the monster was the vulnerable one, and the human was the one more so pursuing. I liked that. I did. I loved it. My next question for you is, what does LGBTQIA plus representation mean to you in the book world?
Oh, hold on. There we go. So I was a late life bloomer, and this means everything to me. I had no representation when I was growing up, and I didn't meet my first lesbian couple until I was early in my early 20s. Before meeting them, it had never even occurred to me that a woman could be with another woman, because like I lived in such a het-based society that it just didn't even cross my mind. There were no books out like that that I had access to. Even the literature, like the fantasy books that were being written, it was I devoured books. So like books that had female main characters were hard to find. Like we are talking the 80s. So books that had female characters were hard to find. I quickly devoured all the fantasy that was available through women writers, and there was never enough. And at that time, none of the things that I could find, because they weren't available in the library or for sale at like the local bookstore, because there weren't a lot of independent bookstores then either. They were all the big box that were near me. Um, you just couldn't find gay books. Like it just wasn't there. So I was literally past what society considers it was. So I considered myself bi, because I realized that I thought women were really pretty, but obviously they're just the fairer sex. And it wasn't until summer 2024 when I realized I was a lesbian. I was literally past what society considers middle-aged when I figured it out. And I feel like if I'd had examples earlier in my life, I would have known sooner, but we live in such a heteronormative society that
Yeah.
it just wasn't possible for me. And so many women experience that they get, into their middle age, they have children, and they had husbands by this point, and then they suddenly realize one day that like that isn't actually their true self. Um, and I'm making it my personal mission at this point to be that example for younger women. I am visibly queer. I'm out. I'm proud in public. I feel like women need to know that they have a choice. I want people to see themselves in my characters that live in this vast fantasy world that I've created. But I include not only a spectrum of queerness in my books, but I also try to include like people of color, different cultural aspects that are respectfully done. I'm fortunate to have so many friends from so many and peers from different walks of life to sensitivity read my writing so that if I do something that if I code something a certain way, like Boudica, we had discussed Boudica's coded as black, but I
Mhm.
don't have the black with a capital B experience, but I definitely wanted a main lead fantasy character that isn't white, and I do want that in my books. Um, and it's one of those things that I really strive for. I want people to be able to read my books and see it in there because up until even the last 10 years, it is hard to find people of color in fantasy books.
It
Like
is.
it is really, really hard. Um, and I want to see more of it. So of course I'm going to write it. I'm always going to write what I want to see. Um, and I want to see, honestly, like I want to see more sapphic fantasy. So I'm writing it. And I hope that like other people might read my book and they're like, I'm going to write some sapphic fantasy too, you know? Contemporary romance really is the big seller in sapphic, so we see a lot of that.
Mhm.
And but I hear a lot of people saying, "Hey, um I want this straight romance fantasy. Can somebody write this gay for me?" And I hear
Exactly.
that a lot in so many different very famous books. I'm not going to mention any of them, but very famous books. They're like, can somebody make this gay for me because I'm going to need it as a sapphic book? And that
Exactly.
should like it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but like let's see some more sapphic fantasy out there. And that's what it means to me. Like I want that representation. I want everyone from every walk of life to be able to pick up a book and see themselves in it. And I didn't have that growing up. So I want to be able to offer that to women now, like so that they can just be able to see themselves in books and know that they're valid too, that they have their lives are also completely and utterly valid. And that's it.
You are absolutely the best. That was so inspiring. And I think that when people say like in fantasy, like, it's an escape, it is an escape. Or when they say like, what are you learning from these books? Romantasy has taught me to be brave, has taught me to speak up for myself, has taught me there's multiple ways to fight for yourself and fight for the ones you love. Like these books teach us lessons, they give us a little bit of courage. And even if you're not part of the LGBTQIA plus community, there's something to be said for reading books where like the romance is good, period. Like I read straight romances and I'm a lesbian, but sometimes straight romances I just change the pronouns in my mind. The writing is still good. Like that's my
Yeah.
thing. If the writing is good, the writing is good, you know? I could just change up things in my mind, but the core of the story, if it's something I love, it's something I love. Also, I do appreciate that there are amazing authors out there who are straight but write queer romance beautifully and who want to see representation out there as well. Even if
Yeah.
they are themselves are not queer, they want to see it out there. They know they're amazing writers and they have the creativity and the awareness to ask people in the queer community, "Hey, what are your thoughts on that? Did I write this well?" Especially when it comes to spice. If you don't know, ask. Like if, in a safe space, 100%, you
Yeah,
know?
get those sensitivity readers. There are people out there that will offer to do it for you, and it's a good idea to get more than one because not everyone has the same opinion, and you have to kind of like work your way through that and be like, all right, and make sure that you did it. I mean, I'm really fortunate in that like when I wrote the character Xander and I made them gender fluid, Like
Hmm.
my girlfriend is NB, so she went ahead, she goes by she, they, and she went ahead and like sensitivity read that for me and
Wow.
made some minor adjustments. Like there were some small areas that she was like, okay, this needs just small adjustment here and a small adjustment there. But I was fortunate to have someone that was that close to me be able to read through those parts and make sure that it was sensitively read because I am not like I am straight up femme all the way. Um and some of the things that she said, like because I'm not from that perspective, it was good to
Hmm.
have her perspective on it. Just like I had another friend read through Boudica and make sure that my descriptions were okay, like and acceptable. And it's good to have friends like that. And when you're a writer, you should have peers to go ahead and read through your work and critique it. And they should come from all walks of life. And that's the beautiful thing is not everyone's the same. And I want to see
I
that.
love how inclusive it is as well. Like Boudica felt, I felt like I could see myself in her.
Yeah.
And the way she transforms as well, like for anyone who's ever felt like they've had to be really strong in the public eye, but deep down, like you're a big softie and there's another layer of you. The gargoyle for me, yes, she's actually a gargoyle in the story, and that's fantastic. But also like the way that someone can transform from stone to human. And there's so many elements of your story where I felt this rush of like I wanted her to get to where she needed to go. I wanted her to be able to reveal herself when she was ready and not in a rush. I just felt like for anyone who's ever felt like they've had to code switch, or for anyone who's ever felt like they've had to kind of change themselves for certain settings, and you're only vulnerable with the people you love and you feel really safe with, especially as a queer person. Like there's so many ways to relate to Boudica, and even just there is a moment in the book I will not say where someone has not done something ever, and their love interest shows them how. And
Mhm.
it's flirty and it's beautiful and it's a little sexy. And I just remember reading it and being like, how beautiful to write this queer experience in such an amazing way. And I just blush and get excited because it was such a really cute scene, and it just I like that for me. Like I will read anything you write from now on. Like my eyes are open. So I'm sitting here. I'm like I am a new woman. So now I'm just like I will read literally anything you write after that. And
Well,
like listeners, I wish I could say more, but I just want everyone to go into it blind so that you can really enjoy yourself.
it
Um,
was fun to play with that like Superman Lois Lane love
mhm.
triangle for two kind of thing. So it was fun to play with it. Like because the reader goes in knowing like because you have the dual point of view, the reader goes in knowing that that's the situation.
Yeah.
But it's fun to play with it, and the feelings that come out of it. So
I couldn't agree more. And I feel like your writing was so immersive in that way. And I wanted to ask, there is magic in the book. If you could have a power, what would it be?
I would want to fly. I've always wanted to fly since I was a little kid. I always had the flying dreams. The closest I've ever gotten is a plane or a hot air balloon ride. So that's
Ooh.
it. I am not an athletic girly. That would be my girlfriend. I am the I am the curvy girl that is not athletic. Uh, so the whole like I think the slippers that Viola had in the story and that she was parkouring around Paris were fun. I would be terrified of jumping from building to building. So that kind of flying would not be okay for me. I would actually want to be able to not have to worry about falling.
I did imagine with her slippers very like Spider-Man-esque because the way she's
Yes.
able to jump from spot to spot, and when she does get to Boudica and she's in this beautiful big tower, um, I felt like it was definitely giving like Hunchback of Notre Dame, where like you're super high up and it's dark and moody, and she just hops up there and she's like, "Hey, babe, what's up? Like I miss you." And the gargoyle's like, "I can't move," but in her mind, I loved her point of view where she was like, "I literally can't say anything, but like, I'm glad you're here though." Like she's like, I can't say anything, but like, I'm glad you're here. You know,
Mhm.
I liked that. Like it was very much so like I see you, you're safe. Like the protector, that is a book trope I feel like no one talks about where it's like I'll protect you or it's like I'll take care of you. I love it. I love it. The only other author who I've read who writes that trope the same way you do is Hannah Bonham Young, and I have all of her books right here. Oh, but
Um,
the concept of like who takes care of you, you know what I
mhm,
mean? You ask for it, I do it. That's our dynamic. I love books like that. And I'm sitting here, your book gave that energy where it's like, who's gonna
mhm,
protect her? Me. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, it's giving protective girlfriend. It's giving strong woman. And I love it so, so much. And it was, devoured that up. I love that trope with all my heart. I will go feral for that
mhm,
trope where it's like, well, who's gonna protect you? Me, her
mhm.
girlfriend, me. So who said that? I'm gonna call myself my girlfriend. You claim me now. I belong to you. I love that. So my last question for you is, would you write a book about someone's siblings? Wink, wink. Would you write a book about someone's siblings in this book or their creator? And are you looking forward to possibly expanding more on their love story?
So the good news for this, I have several pieces of good news. There were always four books planned for this series. So
Yay!
book two is going to be coming out hopefully this summer is Mirabelle and Ariella. And book three is Cassiopeia, and book four will be Xander and their soulmate. So there's also my partner Erin and I put out a sapphic fantasy anthology every year. This is our second year we're doing it. This year's called By Her Sword, and it's for sword sapphics. There will be a short story of Viola and Boudica's adventures in the Bach Horde in that anthology this year. So that'll be coming out in June. So if you want to check out some like more, a little more, it's like a piece of candy, a short story about Viola and Boudica running through the magical library and getting into trouble. That'll be in that
Ooh.
anthology this year. So for the four books that are planned, there will be audiobooks as well. Tantor made me a nice deal. Um, and that offer's been signed, so we're going to be working on that. So all four books will have an audiobook to go along with them.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Oh, I'm beyond excited because in my head, Boudica's voice is like silky smooth and like super deep. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you find someone to match that energy.
I I do have someone. I'm hoping. I'm not going to announce it right now because it should be, well, I guess I
Me begging for any details. I'll take anything. I have the
I'm
first
hoping
sentence
originally I was
down.
I know, right? Hold on. I just need one moment. I'm just looking to see.
Yeah. But yeah, listeners, I'm going to put all of the books referenced in the show notes below, as well as the Librarian's Gargoyle. I'm also going to link below. But I think there was a book by your partner that they also wrote that matches those cozy vibes with queer representation. So I wanted to link their book as well.
Yeah, so that's Erin Branch is my partner, and she wrote Die Curious. It came out in November. It is a fabulous sapphic um, tabletop like a D&D game romance. Um, and it does feature a NB character who plays a paladin in the game and a very stoic person in real life. And his
Mm.
and the very like flirty, fun, pink-haired gamer girl as
Hmm.
the partner. So it's got a really good dynamic for it. So I did look at this. So I'm hoping, and it should go through. The Tantor has promised me. So Abby Creighton should be the one that's doing the narration for the four books.
Oh, I
I'm
I
hoping
think I
that all
have
goes
heard
through.
of
I
one
had
of like her
originally,
working.
she has this beautiful deep voice that makes me swoon.
Mm.
So I got to meet her at a GCLS, it's Golden Crown Conference in last July. She's an amazing person. Originally, I was going to go with her for the first book. It's a lot of money to produce an audiobook. I'm sure people have heard about it. It is several $1,000s to produce it. And Tantor offered for me to, when they came and offered to for the rights on the audiobooks, I really couldn't refuse. I was like, "Oh." this is a good deal. And, and I said, but I still want Abby Creighton. And they said, we'll get her for you. And I was like, okay. And I'll be
What?
honest with you, with the political climate right now and how crazy everything is, I was thrilled that Tantor is still picking up queer books, and not only queer books, but they wanted all four books right from the front. And
Wow.
that excited me because, like, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple months, let alone years.
Mhm.
And it's going to take me, like, it's going to take me at least 2 years to get all four books out. Like, I'm planning on doing a release every 6 months. So it's going to take me a while to get them all out. And I was just like, okay, if that's, sure. But I was like, but I want Abby Creighton and I want Madison Brake to keep doing my covers. And they're like, you can have both. And I was like, all right, cool, then we're good because Madison Brake is the illustrator that did the cover for Librarian's Gargoyle. She's an amazing human being, an amazing artist. I can't say enough nice things about this woman. And she she just sent me the color roughs for the book two, and it
Ooh.
is so freaking cute, and I get so excited about it. And once probably sometime like this spring, I will break that cover and reveal it to the world. But for right now, it's suffice it to say, it is super cute. And you're gonna love it, and it's got like the subtle, like it's got a sunrise in the background this time instead of the starry night sky, and it's got like the lesbian flag, basically like sunrise going on in the
Oh my
background. Like
God.
she did that, and I'm like, I see what you did there.
I'm gonna be subtle. I see
Yeah,
you
you're
and
not
I love
subtle.
it.
Like you're
That is
not subtle,
so
but I love it.
cute. Oh my
So
gosh. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I loved your book with all of
pleasure.
my heart. I am definitely gonna be getting a physical copy very soon. The moment I saw you hold up your physical copy, I was like, there's a physical copy? So now I'm sitting here, I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, yeah. So this is available Barnes and Noble, all of you can look it up online. It's on all the usual stores as a physical copy. It's also available on Amazon. So,
wow.
and then it's in KU, of course. You can get the ebook because it's in KU, it's exclusive to Amazon for the ebook. So you can get the ebook on Amazon or KU. But
Yes.
yeah, I've been super thrilled at the response I've gotten from this book. Like I can honestly say this is the first time that I like showed up in public to do like a reading, and afterwards people were like, I already read this book. I can't believe you're the author and you're here. And I'm like, hi.
I'm so grateful that you shared this book with the world. I cannot wait to read more of your work. And where can everyone find you on social media? How can they follow you?
Okay. At Evelyn Shine. So I'm on Blue Sky, all under the same author name, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook. I don't do X because there's only so many hours in a day, honestly.
Understood. And I'll
Um,
link your Instagram because that seems to be where all my listeners kind of hop
that
in from more.
yeah, right now Instagram and Blue Sky now is where I hang out the most. I do still post on Facebook, but I might check it once every couple days.
It's
So,
okay. That's
yeah.
all right. So I'm so grateful for your time, and I cannot wait to read what you come up with next.
Ah,
Until I get your next book, I will definitely be checking out your partner's books because I love supporting a couple. What? And I'm so grateful for everyone listening. I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Evelyn, for coming on the podcast. I'm so grateful
thank
for your
you.
time.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So have a great day, everybody, and thank you for listening.